You are listening to the 2 and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
Mazzoli to Banks was like spaghetti and meatballs, fettuccine Alfredo, ketchup and
Pierogies,
mustard.
Kubasa. Get out of here with your condiments.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the 2 and Out CFL podcast.
Now they have to kick it out, and they do!
Every week, Travis Currah.
Does anybody still care about this podcast?
And Brazilian Ty
Hunters are people, too.
talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Are you kidding? This is unbelievable!
Ready, set, hunt!
And we are part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. I'm Travis Currah. He is Brazilian Ty. You know what? I thought we would take this chance to maybe read some reviews of the podcast. I know that it's asking a lot to, go to Apple Podcasts and throw 5 stars in a review on there. It's basically like asking you to come, clean out my kitchen for me or something like that. But we'll start here from Loadmaster 11. Gave us a 5-star review, says, I enjoy each episode. I love the off humor they bring to each podcast. It sure brightens up the program as they talk about football, players, stats, and games. It's fun to listen to and not loaded with other distractions and things. Thanks, and go Blue Bombers. Now, that last one, I don't know.
Yeah, but in the world of the internet, which is full of 98% negativity, it is nice to see somebody actually like us.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And here's another positive review from Jeffrey James Smith. 1 star.
Okay.
It's titled, Some Advice to the Hosts. You're not that funny. Calm down. That's all it is.
Like, that. I'm sorry that something crawled into your cereal and died in the morning that you wrote that. Let's be honest, Trav. I don't try to make other people laugh. I try to make you laugh. I try to break you every time.
That's not hard.
And no, and
there are
that's
different
why,
levels,
that's why
though.
That's why I'm batting like 1,000. Yeah, once you start wheezing, I know I need to back it off.
Join 2 and Out for CFL Fantasy and CFL Pick'em and show Currah and Ty what you got.
They are who we thought they were!
Just click cflfantasy.tsn.ca
Enough from talking about it. There has to be consequences.
and pick'em.cfl.ca.
All right, let's start with another Thursday night doubleheader. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers are 2 touchdown favorites over the Toronto Argonauts. 3 more losses here, and Corey Chamberlain will join Forrest Gregg for the most consecutive losses in CFL history. Will he get there? Winnipeg, Edmonton, Montreal. That is the upcoming schedule for the Argos.
Forget tied. I think he's going to set the new record.
You said 0-18, I believe it was the last show. You feeling pretty strong about that, eh?
Well, I mean, Collaros is going to go in there and turn the ship around, right? Obviously not.
Let's talk about that, because
oh, man.
Wednesday afternoon, it was a bit of a shocker that the Argos tweeted that they have acquired Zach Collaros from the Saskatchewan Roughriders, a conditional pick for next year's draft in return. It looks like if Collaros plays enough games, it could get all the way up to a second rounder for the Rough Riders in return. And if it doesn't, well, it'd probably be a low draft pick or maybe even no pick going in return to the Riders. But the Riders here, they're all in on Cody Fajardo. They're saving a ton of money off the salary cap. Last year and the last few years, Chris Jones's philosophy was not to pay his quarterbacks that much money, and then kind of went against it with the whole Zach Collaros thing. But now they actually have a good quarterback on a very, very team-friendly
The
contract.
Codester, if you believe Wikipedia.
Yeah, maybe they need to sign Fajardo to an extension ASAP because he's actually a free agent after the season. But this is a desperation move all the way for the Argos, isn't it?
100%. I mean, McLeod Bethel-Thompson not getting the job done right now. You still don't know what you have in Dakota Prukop or Michael O'Connor. James Franklin's timetable is unknown. And if you're the Riders, you're like, yeah, The way Fajardo's playing right now, you have no reason to hang on to Zach Collaros. And the savings on your salary cap are just so great that you can't help but make this trade. So it kind of works out for both teams to an extent. Worst case scenario, Zach Collaros doesn't actually play, but he's able to be a voice in that quarterback's room and help develop some of the younger talent in the league.
I kind of thought Saskatchewan would keep him around at least for depth. If anything happened to Fajardo, we've seen quarterbacks go down like flies. Mm-hmm. I don't think it would be a very pretty situation in Regina.
O-line hasn't allowed a sack in 2 games, so.
Yeah, they are keeping him clean, but Fajardo likes getting hit and seems to like contact when he passes the line of scrimmage. I'm sure they're going to sit him down and talk to him about that, but it seemed like the Riders had nothing to do, or they wanted nothing to do with putting Collaros on the field and endangering him anymore. Mm-hmm. That's sort of the feeling I get. And Jim Popp and the Argos are so desperate that they say, okay, if he's cleared to go, then we'll put him out there.
Yeah, if they're scared to put him on now, where was this 6 months ago? If they were really worried.
Yeah.
When he had 2 concussions in the span of, 3 weeks? Or something, like it was some ridiculous number. He's had, 3 in the span of 6 months, or 2 in the span of 6 months, 3 in the span of just 13. Like, a little late, but I mean, if it clears cap space for him, and now they're not the ones that are going to be responsible for him going back on the field. I don't think he should be, regardless of skill set. I think it comes down to your health, but. I mean, I can't make that call for the guy. He's a grown man.
The Argos have also signed veteran linebacker Bear Woods, who has been a monster in this league at times. 32 years old. He was let go in May, but he has battled injury issues over a lot of his CFL career, actually. But he was there when they won the Grey Cup in 2017. Last year, he dealt with a back surgery and didn't get into too many games for the Argos, but he's back into the middle of that defense. So the Argos do have plenty of veteran presence in that locker room. I mean, I'm glad they're not rolling over and giving up on the season, but, I mean, how many more of these do they have? I mean, how many more losses can they go through? I guess if Ottawa keeps losing, there's an outside shot, but...
thing is, they have all this veteran presence and everything, but not where they need it, because it takes a lot to overcome quarterback play that they're getting right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that group collectively has it in it to do it week after week. I said if they win 2 games, it'll be a miracle with the quarterback play they're getting right now. And I mean, that leaks into your offensive line play as well, like not getting a whole lot of help back there.
And that's kind of why I still worry about Collaros. He had a good situation in Saskatchewan. They had an offensive line. They had a running game. That's not really happening in Toronto right now. He's got good receivers to throw to. I assume that Collaros will be able to get an S.J. Green involved, and he'll be able to get the running backs involved in the passing game like the quarterbacks now haven't been able to do. But all of a sudden, Labor Day Classic, he's going to be seeing Simone Lawrence again. So that whole thing in Toronto, it's very interesting.
Interesting is one word you could use, yes.
As for this week's game against Winnipeg, it looks like Brandon Burks will once again start at running back, as James Wilder seems to be missing a second straight game with a rib injury. They need to get Burks involved into the passing game and get him into space. He is so good when they can make that happen, and that has to be part of their game plan this week.
It has to be. How often did we see him wide open in the flat last week, and not even Bethel Thompson didn't even look over there. It was a 40-yard pass to Darrell Walker that he would overthrow or underthrow or get knocked down. The only thing with Burks not having the quarterback to get him the ball. I mean, he's only averaging 6.9 points. In his games, the 2 games that he's played against Winnipeg, his average 3.6, but he's still cheap at $26.40. So if you think it's a chance for a breakout, I don't think I'd pick it against Winnipeg. It is a possibility, just any given Sunday, right? So, but yeah, they need to get him the ball and let him make plays. They need to give him the ball in space for sure.
The Bombers have not given up 400 rush yards this season, 63 yards a game. The Argos have actually given up more than double rush yards so far on the season. So come on, this has to be a juicy matchup for Andrew Harris.
At $11,000, it's a little tricky to get. It's a little tricky to get him in your lineup. You gotta, find options elsewhere, but you got to think they're ripe for the picking.
The Bombers aren't immune to injuries either. Darvin Adams and Brandon Alexander have been placed on the 6-game injured list. That is big. It's another one of those things where you can't just believe the coach during the week. You just have to wait for the roster to come out, because it didn't seem like these were all that serious, and all of a sudden, these guys, they might miss Labor Day and the Banjo Bowl. That's not good for this team.
The Mike O'Shea special. Oh, it's just a veteran day, and then they're not on the roster.
Oh man,
Darvin Adams will obviously be a really big hit. Just what he brings as a leader for those receivers, usually your number one option, is able to open stuff up for everybody else, as he usually draws your number one cover. So. Guys could prosper getting targets that they normally wouldn't get.
Lucky Whitehead, I think he's going to be relied on to stretch the field, because Darvin Adams, he is a big, deep threat, and Lucky's got the speed, so he's going to have to make big plays for this Bomber team over the next little while. And I think Kenny the King Lawler is going to benefit here as well. He's still $2,500 on TSN CFL Fantasy, and basically his play has been the reason that Chris Matthews was a healthy scratch over the last little while. And last game, it would have been a lot better if Nichols was on point. It would have been a lot better game for him. So if you want an Andrew Harris and you need a $2,500 player, there aren't many of them. Trust me. No. I've tried. And it's a risk to throw any of these guys in, but he might be one of the steadiest of them. And speaking of Chris Matthews, he is back into the lineup. He is at the boundary wide receiver spot. Do you see him getting anything done in this game? I feel like he's got to be playing with a chip on his shoulder.
I would think that he's going to come out and want to perform. The thing is, though, we talk about it every week, this offense with the likes of Nick Dembski, Drew Wolodarski, you throw Chris Matthews in there when Darvin Adams is healthy. You have Kenny Lawler, Daniel Peterman's making plays now. Who saw that coming, kind of thing. They have the wide receiver depth on this team does not lend itself to one guy running away with a receiving, like with a 100-yard receiving game, and everybody else getting left in the dust. But I mean, the way Chris Matthews has performed this year, you got to think he's pretty pissed.
Yeah. Jonathan Kongbo, the University of Tennessee product and draft pick for the Bombers, is going to make his CFL debut. They're going to expect him to work his way through the special teams before throwing him in on defense. Maybe he'll be a rotator guy to start until he gets his legs under him in the Canadian Football League. But I'm not sure that this game is going to be the Bombers crushing the Argos like it was in Winnipeg.
I still think Winnipeg covers.
So they still win by 2 scores. I think you got burned, and you have a little bit of the PTSD from saying the Argos are going to beat the Eskimos.
Let's not even talk about it. That's last week. That's last week. We threw the game film out. We didn't even review it. We're on to Cincinnati.
Isn't that the biggest thing with fantasy? You need to have a short memory because
I am terrible. So you know what we should do? We should record a fantasy football podcast because that makes the most sense.
That sounds like a good idea. The Riders are home to the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and the Riders are actually 3-point favorites here. The Ticats come into this game banged up. Darius Sirocco starting right guard, is going to miss this game. Defensive end Adrian Tracy will miss at least this game. He was seen at practice with a walking boot, but he was during training camp as well. So walking boot sounds bad, but sometimes it's really just the swelling.
Like, let's be honest. Yeah. Let's be honest. Kevin Durant walked out of the Oracle in a walking boot and then had surgery on his Achilles a day later.
I'm pretty sure I could use a walking boot in my everyday life.
No, we'll just get Fraser to tie your sneakers up unbelievably tight so you have no circulation. No circulation, no pain.
Sirocco and Tracy are going to miss the game, but the big one, well, it's not only Jeremiah Mazzoli, but it's Brandon Banks.
I totally forgot about Mazzoli going down last week.
Yeah.
Like, that's how short my memory was last week with fantasy.
Mazzoli to Banks was like spaghetti and meatballs, fettuccine Alfredo, ketchup and mustard.
Get out of here with your condiments.
Oh, man. So Banks is not going to be onto the field for this one. I actually, maybe another $2,500 guy, if you do want to go with it. I think Dane Evans is going to be a lot better than he was last week.
And his starts, he averages 16.9, and at $5,000, that's a pretty good value.
Yeah, it leaves a lot of room the rest of your roster. Marcus Tucker is lining up in the slot. He's $2,500. He's already made plays for the Tiger Cats this season. Jalen Acklin, $2,500. He's had a 26-point game at receiver for the Ticats. And Braylon Addison, another player that has had big games for the Tiger Cats. But it's easy to look at the BC games and think that the Rider defense has turned the corner and that Jason Shivers has this defense firing on all cylinders. It's going to be, not to the extent they were last year. Part of that is the BC offensive line, and the Ticats, they are 1-2 maybe in offensive lines in the CFL.
But, I mean, I would have to think Saskatchewan's probably number one on defensive line play right now. And I know those stats are probably boosted on the back-to-back with BC, but I would put Micah Johnson and AC Leonard, Zach Evans, and Charleston Hughes up against any O-line in this league right now. So that's the only thing that worries me if you're going to go with Dane Evans, is that he might be rushed a little and make some bad decisions. That being said, if the O-line plays like we've seen them play, the defense might not even be an issue, and Dane Evans could have lots of time. It really could go either way. I mean, it's going to be it's Rocky and Drago. Really, it's one strength against the other, and it's just going to be really fun to watch in the trenches.
Yeah, because Nick Marshall, he's been picked on this year, has had rough games, but it seemed against BC they were all over those receivers as well. And there is some young receivers in with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, so that's going to be a really fun battle to watch as well.
I think Luke Tasker being healthy in the lineup is kind of overlooked. With Brandon Banks gone, I think Luke Tasker will bring somewhat of a I don't want to say calmness, but I mean he's going to find ways to get open and give Dane Evans somebody to throw to.
They need to get Tasker involved.
Oh, 100% they do.
But his biggest game this year has been 6 catches for 58 yards.
Yeah. And I mean, some of that's probably injuries, right? Like he was hurt coming out of camp. He's definitely not at 100%, I wouldn't think. We're already at week 8. Who is 100%? Everybody's been banged up, little nicks here and there. But yeah, he needs to be a huge part of this offense. I know you look at their record, and it's like, well, they're doing fine with him doing what he's doing, but I mean, it's really hard to go through a year just leaning on one guy offensively.
We talk about the Rider defense, but the Ticat defense is nothing to ignore as well. The Riders on the offensive side of the ball have hardly any lineup changes coming into this week. They escaped BC with a crushing win, but also no injuries. That is massive. Justin McInnes is going to return to the lineup here as well. I think we might be seeing a little bit more Marcus Thigpen here, just a little bit of a hunch, because coming off the short week, they really gave the ball to William Powell, and they've kind of been off and on with William Powell and his workload so far this year.
It's always nice to keep your best player healthy. I mean, you got to play 18 games and hopefully 3 playoff games, or 2 at the very least, right? So if you can spell them off and still get victories, I think you have to. And Thigpen has proven that he can do it. So I don't know why you wouldn't. The only thing against Hamilton in his 4 games, he averages 6.3, while Powell is averaging 15.5. So, I mean, there is a little bit of a discrepancy there. But, I mean, Thigpen, you have the special teams numbers as well, where he can contribute on that side of the ball.
The Ticats are given actually the most yards per carry this year, 5.8 yards. So if the Riders want to run it at them, they might have success doing that. But was the William Stanback game against the Hamilton Tiger Cats? I think if you take that away, I'm just going to guess that they probably have a little bit better numbers when it comes to the running game and taking away that 203-yard game from Stanback a few weeks ago.
That's like me shooting a 79 on Monday night and then shooting a 92 on Tuesday morning. It's a bit of an outlier.
But when you got Big Teddy Laurent and Jagarrett Davis and Dylan Wynn, that defensive line, even that linebacking core, everything. Because those young
even without Simone, they're still really good.
And those young Rider receivers, they're going to be in tough against the Ticats secondary that's playing very well.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't trust any Riders on my fantasy team this week. I just can't do it.
I don't trust almost anyone in this game, to be honest.
I mean, who out of Braylon Addison, Jalen Acklin, and Marcus Tucker is Dane Evans going to throw to? Because remember, we don't have Jeremiah Masoli. It's a dog's breakfast. And I don't mean it as a derogatory term. It's a dog's breakfast. We don't know what we're going to get. It might not be pretty. You might spread the ball around, and the fantasy numbers could just be absolutely terrible.
It's going to be a battle under the lights at Mosaic Stadium tonight. This 2-and-Out podcast is brought to you by ATB Financial, where they have the no-fee, all-in digital account. Who carries cash anymore? Ty, do you deal with the cash?
I have to.
Oh, why?
Beer gardens don't take debit.
Oh,
look out, Macklin, Saskatchewan. I'm coming for you. I got my red paintbrush.
You're right. You do need the cash for the Bunnock tournament in Macklin this weekend.
Mm-hmm. And the burgers and the chips.
Once they get to the 20th century, they're going to go all digital.
Dude, it's Macklin. Let's not. And we're in the 21st century, so I mean,
okay,
you're only a little off, right?
You can bank, borrow, save, all in one account with 0 monthly fees. You can qualify for the line of credit portion as well. And all in this one convenient account that makes everyday digital banking an absolute breeze. There is no minimum balance, unlimited digital transactions, and you're going to get interest on balances over $1,000. Learn more about the no-fee all-in digital account at ATB Financial, and you can find more at atb.com. The Friday Nighter, I think, is going to be a barn burner as well, where the Montreal Alouettes are 7-point favorites over the Ottawa Red Blacks. As for Ottawa, Dom Davis has been taking the first-team reps. Looks like he's ready. Looks like he's ready to return to the lineup. Okay, well, let me bring this up. Montreal has released Brandon Bridge and activated Antonio Pipkin from the injured list. You get one quarterback: John Jennings or Brandon Bridge.
I turn my TV off right now. I'd probably take Bridge.
Yeah, and that's really interesting to say.
The way Jennings has played this year, I want nothing to do with him.
I think Bridge has had success more recently than Jennings has.
Yeah. It's recency bias for sure.
Yeah, But, man, there are a couple quarterbacks that looked really promising at one time. And I wonder where Bridge goes from here. Would he be willing to make a position change?
I don't know.
He's an athletic guy.
If I could think of any team there's probably a couple teams in this league that could use a quarterback.
At least give him some sort of shot or something.
Probably in the East Division, I could think of one or two.
They had 18 of them in camp. I don't know if... still with Ottawa, RJ Harris has been practicing and could return to the lineup as well. And more good news, Antoine Pruneau could return to the lineup as soon as next week. They have said that it's up to him, or if it was up to him, he'd already be playing. He may not be back next week, but it's sooner than probably everybody kind of thought.
Which is basically like a trade for them, right? Getting Pruneau back. It's like you see guys after trade deadlines come back from injury, and you look at it like, well, that's just another great ad because he's missed half the season.
Yeah. Landon Rice is back with the Alouettes as right tackle Tyler Johnstone has been placed on the 6-game injured list with a knee injury. Just when things were looking good on that offensive line for the Montreal Alouettes, and I think Johnstone has a good future, but that's a blow to that O-line, and that sucks to see.
Yeah. Is LBJ available? Yeah. No, but in all seriousness, it's brutal for Johnson. And I mean, a knee injury offensive lineman, that's usually not a good mix. And a 6-game injured list. I mean, he could be out. Like, we've got to wait and see what happens. But geez, just nothing. I mean, everything seems to be going right in Montreal, and then you get a blow like this.
It does look like the 6'7" Sean Jamieson has been practicing at right tackle. 25 years old, went to Western. Guess where he was born?
What's his name?
Sean Jamieson.
I'm guessing Ireland.
Oh, he's Canadian.
Winnipeg. I was thinking Jameson. Oh, of course. Yeah.
Jameson whiskey. I like that.
Yeah. Is there a Canadian in the CFL that wasn't born in Manitoba? I don't think they are. I don't think there is one.
Now, we do the 7 degrees of separation with Kevin Bacon. I think it's probably 1 degree from Manitoba. That's what I'm thinking. Everyone has Manitoba connections.
Unless it's Sunday because everything's closed.
Yeah, exactly. BJ Cunningham could return to the lineup this week. He's been back at practice with a knee brace. He's been one of the most consistent receivers over the last little while. If you want to get him into your fantasy lineup, as long as he's healthy, I'm not going to put my nose up at you for doing that at all.
10 games against Ottawa. Jeez. It's been around a lot longer than I thought. 9.7 points a game, averaging 10.9 in his career. Just under $6,400. A touchdown and a couple catches, and it's money well spent.
Receivers, if you want an elite receiver on your lineup at this point of the season, it is going to cost you. Yeah. It's ridiculous. And the way it's gone and the way teams are spreading the ball around, it's not feast or famine, man.
So this week, Brandon Banks, who is not playing, am I correct?
Right.
Still at $14,000. So if anybody makes a mistake of putting him in their lineup, that's on you.
Please don't put Banks in your lineup. I'd love to see the rest of it. I fit him in last week and work.
Walker, Ellingson, Rogers are all above $8,000. And then you've got Kyron Moore.
I know.
At $7,000, you have Snopley, Bagleton, Tasker, Daniels, and Armani Edwards, who are all in the $7,000 range. And then the $6,000 group, are guys that like Devere Posey and BJ Cunningham, Shaq Evans, and then it just goes down from there. And then you get guys like Kenny Stafford, who you would think $5,884 is a great deal, but who knows if he's going to get the ball.
And once you get under $4,500, it's just a wasteland. It's closing
Julian
your
Fioli,
eyes.
Godino, Anthony Coombs, Natea J, Rodney Smith, Jimmy Ralph, Michael Klukas. Too bad you don't get points for tipping onside kicks. Nate Bahar, Richard Sindani. Sindani's going to start.
He might be an interesting...
Because Breskison is out. Sindani's the senior Canadian receiver.
Which is crazy.
for the Stamps this week. And he's at $2,500. And Kenny the King Lawler as well.
Kenny the King, my boy. The Eskimos and the Stampeders are 1-2 when it comes to pass defense. The Red Blacks and the Owls, 8-9. So there might be some yards up for grabs in this game.
My fantasy team is hoping so.
All right. There's a little bit of a hint. The Eskimos are 1-point favorites over the Calgary Stampeders. We don't get the Battle of Alberta this early in the season all the time, every few years, but it's happening this year, and I'm not going to complain about this one. These teams are going to play 3 times in the next 6 weeks. I love it. Trevor Harris is 0-7-2 against the Calgary Stampeders in his career, and I believe it's Edmonton has lost 7 of their last 9 in Calgary. Edmonton, they're banged up right now. They have guys returning from injury and also guys hurt as well.
Is this a show from 2016?
Or 2017 or 2018?
Or 2015 or 2018?
It's been wild.
2015, Matt Nichols had to start game, or James Franklin had to start games.
Yes.
And Matt Nichols did, I think, too, didn't he?
Well, Mike Riley missed...
13 games?
Yeah, because he got... Not 13. I think he missed 8 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And then won 10 in a row to end the season.
It's... I don't understand what's going on. It's like when players are on the Oilers or the Jays, they are hurt all the time, and they go to another team and they never get hurt again. But it's the opposite. It's the opposite for the Eskimos.
Are you saying Aaron Sanchez's blisters are suddenly going to go away?
Happened for Al Leiter, didn't it?
Like, use some lotion, man.
Puts the lotion on its skin. Oh, that's going to be the name now.
Greg Ellingson and Josh Johnson have not practiced this week. That's not good. Of course, they have today, maybe to prove that they're good to go before the roster comes out tomorrow. But Tavares Daniels and C.J. Gable were back at practice. Don Unamba and Anthony Orange were also practicing, but they have 1 game each on the 6-game injured list, so they're probably not going to play here. For Calgary, Joanne Breskison has been placed on the 6-game injured list. That sucks. I was sure Breskison was going to have a breakout and be a 1,000-yard receiver this year.
Yeah, and, especially him being Canadian, you have to have the depth there. It really sucks. 45.8 points fantasy-wise in 4 games this year. Like, he has been not necessarily lighting it up, but pretty respectable, getting over 10 points a night. 3 touchdowns, 168 yards on just 11 catches. He's averaging 15.3 yards a catch. That's going to be a huge hole to fill in that receiving core for Calgary.
At running back, Kadeem Carey has not practiced this week. It looked like sort of the high ankle area last week. He might be out for a while. So the thought was that maybe Terry Williams was going to get 90% of the touches this week with receiving, returning, rushing. But this is absolutely incredible. Romar Morris has been taking reps at running back. He posted a video. On the
first team.
A lot of reps. And he posted a video on Twitter saying that, hey, I'm progressing. And this is a guy that tore his Achilles 8 months ago.
I don't understand how he's walking.
We remember, was that last season when he came in and had about 40 fantasy points? Late in the year in Edmonton.
I have it right here. In 1 game against Edmonton, 44.7.
So
his career average is 15.3.
If he's good to go, this is a big add to the Calgary Stampeders offense.
It is huge. And Danny Austin tweeted it out that he's taking reps at running back, not only at running back, but as behind the number one and with the number one unit, and getting, unlike what Chapdelaine would do in Toronto usually. So if he's going to be starting, and we've seen them, list Kadeem Carey, and then he has one play, and then Terry Williams is back out there. But I think if Romar Morris can prove that he's ready to go and healthy, I don't see why they wouldn't start him and keep Terry Williams fresh on the special teams. It
was the Labor Day rematch last year. He had 5 catches.
Game of the year.
Yeah. 5 catches.
That game was ridiculous.
Was that it was a great game. 5 catches, 62 yards, 2 touchdowns,
yep.
And he only had 7 carries for 95 yards and another 2 touchdowns. So,
come on. 44.7 points. So I sorted by points per game. Why did I do that? Because now, of course, I have to put him in my lineup at 44. He's going to do it again, right?
Was that the biggest game of the fantasy season last year? I think Riley had some 40-point games.
Yeah, but I went the entire year without putting Mike Riley in my lineup because I refused to pay $14,000.
Yeah, it was craziness. But Terry Williams, he costs $4,911. Mm-hmm. Romar Morris costs $4,870. So,
yeah,
if some news comes out that changes that Romar is not going to be getting the workload and you want to go with Terry Williams, only $40 separates them. So it's really easy
just leave
to
yourself
make that
a little
swap.
bit of wiggle room.
Oh, yeah. So I think it's a good move to have either of these guys in your lineup. As long as Romar is in game shape and ready to take the pounding that a running back gets, he's got the talent to give your team a lot of points. And as far as Bo Mitchell goes, he did say that he had a cyst in the area. He also got that sort of drained in Los Angeles, but he is targeting a August 17th return against the Montreal Alouettes. I kind of hope that he just sits out that and comes back Labor Day after the bye week. But Bo's a competitor. He's going to want to get on the field as soon as he can.
Oh, and it would be nice for him to be 100% healthy and ready to go, but it's really hard to keep these guys off the field, as we've seen guys coming back early from injury. Every sport coming back early from injury and re-aggravating and getting hurt again and missing even more time. But, I mean, it would be nice for him to take the week and then the bye week and then come back. But he's going to want to get reps in, I think, at game speed too. So maybe we see a little bit of that. And then I think they take him out if they're able to get a lead. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough call. I mean, I don't think Bo is going to put himself in any danger. But at the same time, when you get in a game, it's really hard to slow yourself down.
All right, who are your winners for the week?
Winnipeg, obviously. I think that's a no-brainer. Saskatchewan, Montreal, and Edmonton.
So I got Winnipeg and Saskatchewan. I am going back and forth on the Ottawa-Montreal thing because Ottawa, they fought tooth and nail against Calgary. And
I think this is kind of like the litmus test for Montreal. We find out if they're for real or if they're going to – because if Ottawa beats them, then it's kind of a charade.
Well, Ottawa is desperate.
Yeah, they're a wild animal backed into a corner. But is Montreal going to, play up to what they have, or are they going to kind of be drawn back and not play a good game? Like they need to show up, and this is a game they have to win. If you lose to Ottawa, and I'm not saying your playoff hopes and all that stuff are over, but it's going to be a bigger defeat than just on the field.
They need to see the Dom Davis that was appearing in week 2. Well, week 1 he threw 4 picks, so
won the game, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. But week 2 against the Riders, he looked like Doug Flutie out there. So,
okay, Chikai, whoa.
If he can play well or even average against the Alouettes, I think it's going to be a battle. I think I am going to pick Montreal. Edmonton and Calgary, I think that game's really interesting. Something happens when these two teams play, and it gets really tough in McMahon Stadium. I think I'm going to go Stamps right now.
No, I think Trevor Harris is due.
He is due. If the Eskimos are able to pressure and get to Arbuckle, they'll be able to win this game. But I think the Stamps, they'll be up for this one, and I think they'll be able to take advantage of some stupid penalties.
Stupid penalties, and having Trey Robertson and Robertson Daniels in the defensive backfield isn't a bad thing right now. After Trevor Harris was jinxed on Twitter about not throwing a pick, and now it seems to be the norm.
Yeah. The Canadian Football Podcast Network Fantasy Challenge this week has you against Ryan from Canadian Football Countdown and me against Ryan Ballantyne from Horseman Radio. I know that he's going to be picking 100% Stampeders, so I need the Eskimo defense to...
So what you should do is just try to pick the exact team as him and get a tie.
Yeah, because, man, God knows I need a win.
Hey, a tie is halfway there.
So we're against Ryan Squared from CFC and Horseman Radio. What's your lineup looking like?
Ferdinand Adams Jr., William Stanback, Brandon Burks, because I needed a cheap option, Nick Dembski, Quan Bray, Reggie Bagleton, and the Alouettes defense.
All right. I have been messing with my lineup all week. I've been obsessing over this one.
It's probably going to change 3 times tonight.
Andrew Harris. Now, it's probably going to be Romar Morris because of the conversation we just had, but I put Williams/Morris down. Lucky Whitehead, once I found out that Darvin is out, and just the way that the Argos special teams has gone, Whitehead, he could have another return, so there's risk there, but I'm going to throw that in. Quan Bray, who nobody's really paying attention to right now.
I think we're the only two.
But I crunched. He's got the exact same average per game as BJ Cunningham this year, and he's $3,000 less.
Yeah.
And he's just getting more and more up to speed with the Canadian game. He's going to get better and better. I got Brandon Burks as my flex and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers defense.
The Bombers D is just so expensive this week, considering who they're playing.
Oh, I wanted to make a lineup with Darrell Walker because he's the only guy that they throw to.
I know. It's a good thing you don't get docked points for drops.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Who are your top performers this week?
Well, of course, Verdon Adams in one game, 37.2 points. Against Ottawa. Bethel Thompson at 24.4. Dominic Davis, 22.8. As for running backs, Romar Morris, of course, had that big game last year, 44.7. His career average is 15.3, though. Chris Rainey at 19.3. He seems up. I mean, what he did in BC is just skewing all of the numbers. So Andrew Harris at 16.4. You could throw William Powell in there at 15.5. Then you have Darrell Walker at 28.3. Quan Bray at 24.4. And then, of course, Lucky Whitehead at 23.9 for top 3 receivers.
Next week, we're going to have some special programming. I am on holidays, so we're not going to do the recaps and the fantasy matchups that you've come to get used to.
And I'm at the lake, so we all know how that's going to go.
Yeah, and I can't trust Ty to put this thing on the internet. It would just blow up.
You could have just stopped it. I can't trust Ty. And that would have been fine.
So Thursday, 8 a.m. Eastern, we're going to be releasing a podcast, a conversation we had with Commissioner Ambrosi. We talk about all sorts of topics, the Atlantic expansion, the CBA process in the offseason, the appeal process with players, and we actually talk about pierogies too, so that's fun.
Yeah, that's not breaking news.
And then Tuesday morning after the long weekend, 8 a.m. Eastern, I'll be releasing a chat that I had with starting left guard right now for the Edmonton Eskimos, Jacob Ruby. So make sure you tune in for that one. Some special podcasts coming to you next week. We are a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. I want to point you into the direction of Tomato Radio, a podcast all about food and drink. You can't go wrong with that. Mary and Amanda record this in Edmonton. They expect a new episode on Wednesdays every other week, and their last one came out a few weeks ago, a guide to a delicious Edmonton summer. So, man, if you're looking for some good places to eat in Edmonton,
I think it's just get wasted and go get donaires, isn't it? That's what I usually do.
Tomato Radio is a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, and if you need any CFL tickets for Week 8 or any upcoming games, you're looking at Labor Day, you're looking at Thanksgiving or anything like that, SeatGiant.ca, Canadian-owned and operated. All of the events on there are in Canadian dollars. If you use the promo code APN, you're going to save yourself 5%. And you're going to support the Alberta Podcast Network in the process. SeatGiant.ca, promo code APN, and check out all the great APN shows at AlbertaPodcastNetwork.com. Brazilian Ty, I guess I will be talking to you in a while. Monday, August
11th?
12th?
No, 12th.
Something like that.
Because my birthday's the Wednesday.
All right, buddy. Yeah, your birthday's the day after that. All right. All right, buddy. Enjoy Bunnock and come back in one piece from Macklin, all right?
I might come back as a bigger piece with what I have packed in my cooler.
I'll be avoiding the Grizzly Bears in Jasper. So enjoy Ambrosie and Ruby next week. Rate, review, subscribe. Help us out because that guy hates us earlier in the show. Or leave us a bad review but a 5 stars. How does that sound?
Yeah, I like that.
We'll be back with the regular programming on August 12th. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.